We are here today at SRUC's research farm at Easter Howgate to look at best practice for calving heifers to reduce recovery periods and ensure that they get back in calf the next year. Any problems at calving can have significant impacts on the recovery period and their ability to get back in calf again. One of the most common complaints from producers for calving at 2 is that they have high barren rates in the second year from these heifers.
My name is Alwyn Jones and I am a veterinary investigation officer and I am based in St Boswells on the Scottish borders. Calving is one of the most dangerous time really in the life of the cow and the calf, and we're all aware of the consequence of a difficult calving. We can end up with a dead cow and dead calf at worst, but even also just as bad, we can cause injury to the cow, cause tearing inside. We can cause injury to the calf, such as broken bones, broken ribs, and also if it's been a particularly difficult calving, calves can be prone to oxygen deprivation, and that can have short-term and longer-term consequences like acidosis and increased susceptibility to infections, like navel ill and that kind of thing. Thinking about heifers, a consequence of difficult calvings in heifers would be that the impact of trauma and then infection on the uterus in particular can extend the period that they might, possibly by several months, to get them back in calf, and sometimes they might not get back in calf again if there's been severe damage, But to reduce the chances of this happening, I think, and to improve the success of chances of a successful calving, I think some of the three key points, I think, is knowing when to intervene, knowing how to intervene, and appropriate care of the calf in the first few hours of life. So I'll elaborate a little on those 3 points. Knowing when to intervene. You don't want to intervene too early and you don't want to intervene too late, but we find as a general guide, if the water bag has been out for over 2 hours and the cow's not making any progress, it's probably time to intervene. If she's been straining for 30 minutes or more, then it's time to intervene. If the calf is not moving, gliding out and then back in when the cow strains and relaxes, if that's not happening, then that suggests that things might be too tight in there and the calf might be too big, and then that's also a cue to intervene as well. In terms of how to intervene, now the first thing before we intervene, it's important to remember that cleanliness is vital, and using plenty of lubrication. So that's to reduce the risk of infection after calving and also to reduce the risk of damage to the cow when you're intervening. So the few things to think about is when you're investigating, to check if the cervix is fully dilated, is the calf in the correct position, and if it's not, then it'll need correcting. And also try and gauge the size of the calf as well. So if the calf hasn't been brought into the birth canal, the head and the legs by itself, by the cow itself, that suggests maybe the calf is too big. And also if the forelimbs are crossed in the birth canal and you can't fit your hand above the head of the calf, then those are cues that the calf is probably too big. And at that point you should consider calling the vet out. And then the third point I made was about caring for the calf in the first few hours. So the main areas there are resuscitation of the calf, so clearing its airways, and stimulating it to breathe. The second point would be to monitor the calf for signs of vigor. So a calf ideally should be holding its head up in the first 5 minutes and should be looking to start standing the first 15 minutes. Okay? And if it's not doing those things, then it could be an indicator that maybe there's been trauma, something during calving, maybe it's been oxygen deprived or something like that, and it might need treatment. Again, it might be a time to get in touch with your vet. The third thing is colostrum. The calf should be looking to suckle its mother in the first hour, at least making an attempt to suckle its mother. And you're looking for it to be, suckling for a good strong suckle for about 20 minutes, ideally at least 20 minutes. And, if it's not doing any of that, then it's probably time to think about supplementing with colostrum, ideally the mother's own colostrum, and that can be done via stomach tube or bottle. And then talking about the posters, we've so here at SRUC we put together these calving poster. There's 2 posters, and the information in those posters come from a combination of scientific research that's published, but also from experienced vets and experienced farmers. And we pulled all that information together, and what we think is a guide on the best practice in calving cows. And they're laid out as flow charts, if you like, and they're sort of as easy to follow kind of guides. And we made them in poster formats in the hope that people would put them up in their sheds, so all the staff could have access and can see the posters.
I'm Bruce Wyper, and I'm one of the 2 cattlemen here at Easter Howgate, and my main role is just in the management of the spring herd and the autumn cattle calving herd. We normally at the moment look at replacing between 45 and 60 heifers in the year, because we're still trying to up our numbers a little bit at the moment. We run 3 breeds. There are an Angus cross Limousin, we run a Limousin cross Angus, and then we run the 3rd breed is a pure Ling. Our heifer system is we calve them down at 2-year-old. We put them into an AI programme at about 14 months, so they're calving down around about 23, 24 months. So obviously the 3 main things we look for our selection is weight, which is at 420 kilos, and that's across all the 3 breeds regardless. The Lings obviously are a wee bit lighter, but it means we get more of the better breeding and better genetics from the Lings into the herd. The other one is age. We look at no less than 14 months, which gives us 23, 24 months when they calve down, so we're not calving too young. And then the other selection is on temperament, on feet, on their conformation and their size. Our last selection is the 10% of the lightest weaned calves from the year before. We don't keep at all regardless of their breed or anything like that, and their mothers are then culled out of the herd, so we no longer breed from that bloodline. In terms of another thing that we use for selection is we 4 years ago introduced pelvic scoring into the heifers, and we're traditionally from about 90 heifers pulling out 6 or 7 every year for various reasons, such as being a free martin even though they were born as a single. So the cows, at one point the cow will have had twins inside her, but she's only brought 1 to full term, so we would never have known that without inspecting her. And then a lot of the other ones that have been thrown out are just for either narrow pelvises, and we've found quite a few that have had really misshapen ovaries and then would never have managed to carry a calf to full term. So it's a good tool to use to get out ones that you don't need. It'll also save you money not using them, but it means you can start fattening them a lot quicker, so you can get rid of them a lot quicker as well. Well, for the heifers, obviously it's all AI'd, and we select the bulls between us, and we always look for short gestation, easy calving, and a lot of milk as well, which is one of our main ones, purely because obviously we're retaining a lot of females. We still retain a lot of females from our heifer calves as well, which isn't always done, but because we're needing the numbers at the moment, we're still selecting from heifers, so we're still looking at that as a trait as well. But our main one is short gestation and easy calving, and I'm just being young heifers. So yeah, we've changed our breeding programme quite a lot over the last couple of years. So in 2019, we went away from a 3-cycle AI programme and we put the heifers onto a 2-cycle AI programme. This didn't really work for us. It dropped our conception rates down to almost 60% across all 3 breeds in the heifers. So in 2022, we went back to a 3-cycle AI programme, but we took a lot of bloods off all the heifers to check for their progesterone levels, to check what was coming in season, what was fertile at the time. And it was quite interesting, about 35% of our heifers showed they had no progesterone in their system, and that was in the May, we AI in the June. So after we done that, we gave them a cedar, we gave them like what's called a precocious heat. So we just let them come into season, we synchroed them, and then we just let that die out. We didn't actually AI them. And after we did that, it meant they came into a natural synchronised heat for the first day of the AI at the end of June. And this year when we scanned, we hit 81%. So that was a good success. We've jumped almost 20% from making wee changes, and we're going to look at keeping that going forward as well. when it comes to us calving them down at 2-year-old, obviously we've had to look after them quite a bit more. So when they're out at grass for the AI programme the year before, they're on our best grass, so it keeps them growing. And then when they come in the winter, they're kept in the same batch, so there's no competition for feed from older cows or getting pushed out of the way, so they still keep growing because they're growing as well as having a calf inside of them. In terms of calving itself, with the Limousin Cross Angus and the Lings, we don't really have much of a problem. We very rarely have to intervene on any of them. They calve down themselves unassisted quite happily. The only ones is our Angus Cross Limousin heifers. They are naturally just a bit smaller, and we've traditionally always put them into calf to a Limousin bull. But we're found out, looking back at our records over 4 or 5 years, that a lot of our stillbirths are coming from this very small specific group of cattle. We're getting a lot of stillbirths purely from just calving difficulties, either ourselves intervening or a vet intervening, and the calves sadly is dying during the process. We're also getting a lot more caesareans in this group. So we looked at it this year, and what we've done this year is we've spoke to our vets, and we're going to do selective C-sections on any of these Angus heifers this year. So if anything has got difficulty calving at all, or we just have to try and calve it, and it's going to be tight, it's going to be quite a pull, we've just decided we're going to do a preemptive C-section, just hopefully try and get a live calf, but also so we don't do any damage to the heifer, so hopefully she'll go back and calve a lot easier. Going forward, we've made the decision to try and get rid of this problem. Is we've sourced female sex semen from a Limousin bull from France. We're hoping that by putting female sex semen into these Angus heifers, we're going to have a lot less bigger calves. We shouldn't have any bull calves. And being all female calves, we're hoping going forward that we've eliminated this problem and they will just calve down quite happily themselves at 2-year-old. So when it comes to actually calving time in this shed here behind me, our crush is right at the very far bottom end of the shed. So the way I try and work it is all the heifers are grouped together. They're grouped together with the cows that are carrying twins. So they're closest to the crush. So if there's anything that needs to be assisted or intervened, they're the easiest. And the further you come away from the crush, the cows become older. So a lot of these cows behind me are 9, 10, 11-year-old cows. Traditionally, they should need a lot less assistance and anyone to intervene, so they should do it all themselves, so you don't need to have them beside the handling area just as much. In terms of when we assist, I'd like to give the heifers as long as they can, especially just to open up and give them as good a chance as they can. So we have a policy here, we won't really intervene unless you can see a physical obvious problem, such as it's coming backwards or there's a really big swollen tongue. We try and give them a minimum of 4.5 hours. And then even then, it might just be a case of put her in the crush, have a feel, see what's happening. If everything feels okay and she's just still a wee bit tight, we just let her back out, back into the pen, maybe for another hour. And then obviously we'll maybe have to intervene ourselves and just see what's needing to be assisted. So in terms of future breeding from these heifers, they used to always go back into the AI, but we found we didn't have a great success rate with the calved heifers going back to the AI. Across the board, that was across all the breeds. So in 2019, what we started doing is we started using a lot more bulls for natural service, and it was specifically aimed at these calved heifers. And in 2019, 2020, 2021, we hit 100% back in calf of what we put back to the bull. Last year in 2022, we had 98% as well. So across the board, we don't find, as long as you've looked after them properly, keep them together, don't let them get bullied by older cows and let them keep growing, we don't have a problem with them getting back in calf. And then you usually find they have a lot better calves as younger cows than what they do if you let them calve down at 3-year-old. We do have some that come from our autumn herd that calve down at 3-year-old, and we just find when they get to the end of their life, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old, they're starting to have poorer calves a lot quicker. And the younger ones we just find to have better calves for longer if we calve them down, and they don't grow as too big a cow.